All right, we are going to start with a sports fact. Did you know that there are only 2 days a year in which there are no professional sports games from Major League Baseball, NBA, National Hockey League, or the NFL? Those days are the day before and the day after the MLB's All Star game. Did you know that? So, we're going to talk today about ratios, and ratios are just a way of comparing two different numbers. So, we can actually compare the days of no baseball games or no sports games to sports games. And so, when we're thinking about ratios, there's three ways to write it. There's a way to write it using letter or using a number and the word to between them. So that's one way. There's the numbers and a colon between them. That's a second way. And there's the way of writing them as a fraction. And that's the third way. So these are ways to write a ratio. So let's go back up to our scenario here. And let's think about the ratio. We know that there are 2 days a year. So those are going to be our pieces of information. And so we're going to practice writing this 2 days every year into ratios. We're going to write it 3 different ways. So 2 to how many days are in a year? 365, if that was your guess, that is correct. So 2 to 365, that's one way to write it. 2 colon 365, that's another way to write it. Or 2 over 365. All 3 of these express the ratio of 2 days of no games out of 365 days in a year. And so, using that information, I want you to practice writing how many days there are games. So, write a ratio . So you know this information because you know that if there's 2 days without games, you can quickly figure out how many days there are games. So I'll give you a minute to write those ratios. And you're writing them in 1, 2, 3 different ways. And so hopefully you've come up with the 3 ways. The first way has the word to between it, the second way has a colon, and the third way is a fraction. You take these numbers, right, for games, days with games, there's 363. 2 days of a year, 365. So 363 colon 365, 363 over 365. So I want to put a spotlight on some vocabulary words for today. And we've talked about the word ratio. And a ratio is just comparing numbers. Those are ratios. And another word we use commonly with ratio is rate. And a rate is also comparing two numbers, but a rate has units. So it's comparing two different units. And it's very important that you understand the difference between ratio and rate. They do look similar because they are still both comparing things, but rate means that you are comparing different units. So for example, one of the most common ones, MPH, miles per hour. Miles is a unit and hours is a unit. Dollars per pound. Dollars is a unit, pounds are a unit. PSI, pounds per square inch. That's a pressure. So those are all unit rates, or rates, because they're comparing two different units. So you are now going to play a game with your partners when you get back to class, or in class if you're watching this in class. You are going to be having a free throw contest. We're not going outside. We are going to do it in the classroom. You are going to shoot some paper in trash cans. So be prepared. Do not practice until Mrs. Beals gives you the directions to do so. But hopefully this introduction to unit rates and ratios has reminded you or refreshed your memory.